Hello. As the editor of issue number 17 of Fundamental of Education, published by Jan Douglas University, an issue with the theme Education for Diversity, Equity and Inclusion, I have the pleasure to discuss in more details with Andrę-Marię JURCA, a doctoral student from West University of Timisoara, Romania, who is also a teaching assistant in the Department of Educational Sciences. She, together with two other professors of our university, has developed a study entitled Perceptions of Educational Managers and Teachers on the Implementation of Inclusive Education in Romanian Schools. The study is important in understanding how inclusive education is perceived and implemented in Romania, as our country continues to align its educational system with European standards and inclusive values. We thank you, Andra, for your willingness to share with us more details about the research published in this issue of the journal.
Thank you for your invitation.
So I would like to start with the first question that brings up the chosen research topic. Please tell us why you chose this topic for the study you published in our journal.
That chose to focus on the perception of teachers and educational managers is justified by the small number of studies carried out so far in Romania on this topic. Most studies investigated the teachers' attitudes and principals' attitudes. To the best of our knowledge, only one study in Romania used the Index for Inclusion, second edition. One study explored how leadership influences inclusive cultures, while another examined school management in Romania, focusing on visions, values, and community collaboration. To develop inclusive school environments in Romania, the Index for Inclusion can be considered a valid tool for achieving this goal.
Okay, thank you. Tell us also, what did the study aim to achieve? What were the objectives pursued?
This study aimed to investigate the perceptions of the teaching staff, teachers, and educational managers regarding the implementation of inclusive education in schools and identify the factors that predict significant differences between their perceptions. Our general research question was, what is the perception of the teaching staff regarding implementing inclusive education in Romania? We had also two specific research questions. The first, in the perception of educators, what are the most strongly represented aspects of inclusion in Romanian schools? And the second, in the perception of educators, what are the less represented aspects of inclusion in Romanian schools? It is important to focus on our specific research hypotheses. The first, there are significant differences regarding inclusive education implemented at the school level in the perception of teachers and educational managers, principals and inspectors, from the perspective of policies, cultures, and practices. And the second, there are differences between the factors that predict the different perceptions of teachers and educational managers about school inclusion from the perspective of policies, cultures, and practices.
So your study aimed to explore how teachers and educational managers in Romania perceive the implementation of inclusive education. It focused also on identifying key aspects of inclusion that are strongly or weakly represented in schools, and examined factors influencing differences in their perceptions. Why it is important to study the perceptions of educational managers and teachers on the implementation of inclusive education in Romanian schools. Maybe could their perceptions influence educational policies and/or pedagogical practices?
Yes, in the teaching process in general, but especially in that of inclusive education, one of the essential factors is considered by the teacher, the expectations being that the teacher's attitudes, perceptions, professional training, and self-confidence are favorable to developing teaching environments that are effective and inclusive. Teachers are the ones who facilitate the development of student skills by applying, implementing, using, and combining various didactic strategies and approaches. Principals can facilitate the support a teacher needs to ensure quality education in the classroom for all students. In other words, teacher and the principal attitudes toward the inclusive education are considered essential predictors of inclusive education.
Indeed, it is important to study the perceptions of teachers and educational managers because their attitudes and beliefs significantly influence how inclusive education is implemented in schools. Because, as we know, teachers play a central role in creating inclusive learning environments through their instructional choices, while principals provide the support and leadership needed to sustain inclusive practices. Tell us also a few things about the study participants. Who were they and how were the data collected?
A total of 135 Romanian teachers who had different administrative positions and taught in pre-university education participated in this research. In order to collect the data, we used the indicators in the Index for Inclusion, the last edition, an instrument created by But and Ainscow. The items were translated and adapted in order to be appropriate to the Romanian educational context. We used the most recent version of the Index for Inclusion, the 4th edition. The Index for Inclusion was used to assess the teachers' perceptions of inclusive education implementation in Romanian schools. The Index for Inclusion contains 70 items on 3 general dimensions: culture, policies, and practices, and 2 sub-dimensions. The dimension of creating inclusive school cultures includes sub-dimensions, strengthening the community and inclusive values. The elaboration of inclusive policies dimension includes the sub-dimensions, school development for all, and ensuring support for diversity. The development of inclusive practices includes developing a curriculum for all and the organization of learning.
Thank you very much. And finally, please highlight the main conclusions of the study.
The results showed that openness to inclusion and non-discriminatory acceptance of any student are declarative values often supported by the teachers. However, acceptance of diversity and tolerance towards any category of students, including gender divergent, is not well represented. In conclusion, the findings suggest that while principals have a more optimistic view of implementing inclusive education in their schools, teachers perceive more challenges. This discrepancy highlights the need for improved communication and alignment between school leaders and teachers to ensure that inclusive practices are effectively understood and applied. Additionally, the results provide valuable insights for international discussion on inclusive education implementation, using data from Romanian to informal global perspectives.
Overall, the study underscores the need for coordinated effort among policymakers, school leaders, and educators to foster a more inclusive school culture by investing in teacher training, strengthening interprofessional collaboration, and ensuring the availability of resources and support services. Romania can move toward a more effective and equitable implementation of inclusive education. Thank you very much for your presentation, Andra, and for your contribution to fundamentals of education. And we hope that you will contribute with other studies in the future.
You're welcome. It was a very useful experience for me.